Hey, welcome back to the Relentless Positivity Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Martin. And my guest today, he's been through some of the darkest times imaginable, but he keeps finding a way to push back and get back into the light. And now he's making it his life mission to bring out the best in others every day. Hey, Rick, thanks for being on the show, man.
Joe, thank you so much. It's an honor, my brother. It's truly an honor. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I hope everyone's got their seatbelt on. They're ready to roll because you may not be ready for the energy he's about to bring to this show, man. He's an interesting dude, and I can't wait to get into it. So, man, let's take it way back. Where'd you grow up? What was your childhood like?
Yeah, break out the popcorn, man. It's a long story. Grew up in South Philly, South Philadelphia. It was where I was born and raised. Grew up, man, angry kid. I was always getting in trouble, always getting into fights. I mean, I remember my uncle just bringing me back from the swimming pool one time and telling my mom, I'll never take him out again because all he wants to do is fight, And it was funny because I was, getting into psychology and things of that nature. And a friend of mine said, well, it's not something that's inherently something that you inherit. It's something that probably happened to you when you were a child. Maybe your older sibling picked on you or did something where, you couldn't dime them out or anything. You're too young. You're an infant. And it progressively, and it made sense because that was probably actually what happened. But at the age of 4, with my anger issues, you had to be 4 years of age to join karate. It was traditional Korean karate, Taekwondo. And on June 27th, 1972, my parents enrolled me in my first class. And that's where it started, man. I started martial arts. And again, just containing those anger issues. I mean, I will be honest, anger is one of my most comfortable feelings. It really is. I've just learned over years and in prison time as well, how to control it. And not to say I embrace it, but again, if it's in a controlled environment and you know how to control it, it can benefit you. You know what I mean? So yeah, again, age of 4 started martial arts and progressively through there, I took it up to boxing. I was very, very fortunate that Joe Frazier, a lot of people don't know who he is, but he was the heavyweight champion of the world. Him and Muhammad Ali had a lot of battles, and he had a gym in Northeast Philadelphia. So my father used to take me over there, and I trained with his older son, Marvis. His younger son, Joe Jr., is about 10, 15 years younger than me. But that's where I really started to get the snot knocked out of me. You know what I mean? Really learning, and I enjoyed it. I loved it. I really didn't want to even mess with karate anymore. I was just like, this is what I like. And from there, I got into Muay Thai. I trained with a guy named Bob Harmel. He's out of Arizona now. He was in Philadelphia. So I was very fortunate to learn a lot of the, they call it dirty boxing. Joe Rogan calls it dirty boxing. But back then, we're looking at the 80s when I was involved, you were still able to strike to the spine. You could strike to the back of the head. You didn't wear any gloves. You could still soccer kick to the head. I was a recipient of numerous soccer kicks, man. Over the years, I wound up getting TBI, which is traumatic brain injury. A lot of concussions. But yeah, so like I said, I got into the martial art industry and I started getting a name for myself. Now, at the age of 9, we moved out of Philadelphia into South Jersey. So we moved into a city called Camden, New Jersey, which is rated one of the worst cities in the United States per capita. It's a small city, but there's just a lot of crime, a lot of violence. Grew up in a Puerto Rican neighborhood, so a lot of my best friends were Puerto Ricans. And so, I was able to learn a second language and really mesh. It was family oriented, but Camden started to get bad. Then I went to Pennsauken and, still continued on doing the martial arts, but MMA was creeping in. Now we're looking at the 80s, as a junior, we're kind of rewinding a little bit. My father had pizzerias. So he had pizzerias for 47 years. So I had a ton of aunts and uncles that never were really biologically my aunt and uncles, but it was more of a, like an Italian community, even though we're German. At any rate, so my uncle Vito, out of all names at all, wanted to open up a martial arts school for me. So as a junior, I was like, well, man, playing football, we were talking about your son and everything. And my senior year, I decided not to play football. And my coaches were like, do you realize, you played the majority of your life, and we have every scout in the United States coming to watch us. We were undefeated for 3 years. And they're like, you got a great chance of going to college. And I'm like, college? What are you talking about? I'm opening up a martial arts school. I'm going to be a millionaire. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
young and dumb.
Yeah.
And at any rate, my uncle, he was laundering money out of it. So at the same point in time, he got pinched. School went down, and three of my classmates went pro. Todd McNair played for the Kansas City Chiefs for about 9 years. Now he's the running back coach for the Buccaneers. Greg Mark played for the Broncos. Oh, no, Greg Mark played for Miami. David Griggs played for the Broncos. And, I'm still looking for my $1 million. You know what I mean?
It's out there, man. It's out there, man.
It's out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen again. I mean, I've made a lot of money. I've lost a lot of money. But being in martial arts itself, you started to get the name. MMA was making a scene. We had a lot of the Gracies that were moving into my area, the tri-state area, because Donald Trump in Atlantic City was allowing MMA fighting. So I was very fortunate to start rolling with Hoist before he even won the first UFC in '93. His brother Hoyler, Helson. I trained a lot with Henzo. So that's when I started to fall in love with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I got into that with the Muay Thai. And back then, you didn't really have MMA schools. It was you went to a certain school to learn an art. So you wanted to learn boxing, you went to a boxing school. If you wanted to learn, any type of stand-up karate, you had to take your karate school. Wrestling school. So that's what my era was all about. And so anyway, I had a brief career in MMA, just for the simple fact that, when I was looking at my medical bills, they were outweighing the paychecks. You weren't getting paid a lot of money. And like I said, just you were early. I mean, at that time it was an elimination series. So you fought 2 to 3 times. It wasn't like you're one and done. It was you were done when you were done. You know what I mean? And it wasn't really popular back then until '93, until Hoist won the very first UFC, and then it exploded. But at that point in time, I was doing prison time. Again, my father being in the pizzeria industry, me being in the nightclub industry as we had a security company that I ran. I didn't own it, but did a lot of neat things. I mean, did a security gig for Mike Tyson back in 1987 when he fought Spinks. Did a few jobs with Dennis Rodman. Total trip. Billy Crystal, Will Smith before he was real famous, and it was him and Jazzy Jeff. So I did a lot with them, Boys to Men. So, in that area, I met a lot of cool people. Made a lot of good money. One of the nightclubs that I was running security out of, I don't know if you watch wrestling or not, but Paul White, the Big Show, he worked for me for about a year. And I remember he was a kid, but he was a big kid. I mean, 7 foot tall, probably close to 500 pounds. And he was a great bouncer, because all he had to do was just grab you, pick you up. And you know what I mean? Liability was minimal with him. He didn't have to smash anybody. And he came to me one time and he's like, I'm about to do a European tour. He was with a guy, Larry Sharp, who had the Monster Factory in Sewell, New Jersey. And he goes, so we're doing this tour around the United States. Hulk Hogan's a part of it. And he's like, when I get back, do I still have a job? I said, Paul, you're not coming back, buddy. And he goes, well, that's wishful thinking. But when I come back, do I still have a job? I mean, I was paying my guys $200 a night. And I was back in the early 90s. You know what I mean? And I said, yeah, you got a job. And he never came back. You know what I mean? So being involved with the nightclubs, things of that nature, my father and I, we got involved with some things that we shouldn't have. And he got pinched. I was involved in too, and it was drugs. You know what I mean? We were selling coke, selling a lot of it. And somebody came in, wiretapped. That's like back then they used to wear the wires, the whole 9 yards, and got enough information on my father that, they basically were waiting for the right time to come in because they were looking for the mother lode.
Right.
Well, by the grace of God, it didn't happen. And that's a whole story on its own. So when they came, they raided our pizzeria. I'll never forget, I was pulling in the back of the of the pizzeria. It was like, I don't know if you're familiar with city blocks,
Mhm.
but in the back was where the back of the building was. And I just remember pulling in and seeing something weird. I had the apartment above the pizzeria. It just didn't look right. You know what I mean? And as soon as I bounced out of my Pathfinder, hit the ground, it came out with, the fucking AKs pulled out the whole 9 yards. And sure enough, man, I'm on the blacktop and I'm like, yep, this is going down. And they're like, yeah, we're going to take you upstairs where your father is and we'll explain everything. And so, got up there. My old man was sitting at the table just shaking his head. And I'm like, yep. And he's like, yep. And he's like, keep your mouth shut. And I was like, not a problem. Not, you know what I mean? So again, they're interrogating this, that. And again, they were looking for the mother lode. You know what I mean? And they were pissed that they weren't finding it and ripping the place apart. And so long story short, with that, they had enough evidence on my father to convict him. Okay. They didn't have enough on me. So our attorney turns around and says, listen, we know you guys aren't going to cooperate. However, if you take the same charges as your father, they said that they'll reduce his sentence. You know what I mean? Because they had a hard on for me. They knew I was involved. They just didn't have really much on me. And my father turned around and said, absolutely not, kid. You like I told you. And I said, well, Papa, I said, listen, I said, you're about to have a grandson. I said, I want you out of prison. I said, so you're able to hang out with your grandkids. You know what I mean? And he, absolutely not. He goes, I'll be fine. I mean, he grew up in Flatbush, New York in the 30s, raised in an orphanage. He's like, it's a full circle. I'm just going back to the orphanage. You know what I mean? I'll die there. I'll be okay, kid. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm a grown man. I was a part of it. And if I can help out, I'm going to help you out. You're my father. You know what I mean? So I agreed. And he literally didn't talk to me for about 9 months. And again, we went through the same system, maximum security. So again, we're not talking about any type of Fed prison or anything like that. We're talking about hardcore Trenton State, Rawway. We wound up in Leesburg, and that's where we did the majority of our time. But I did 5 years, he did 7. So, in prison, people always ask, well, were you scared? Were you frightened? Were you, if anything, I was, no, I was kind of groomed for that kind of shit. Like I said, I knew I was going to be okay. I mean, I already had people on the outside looking for me in the inside. So, it was just a matter of leaving my family, and at that time, my wife got pregnant with my oldest, Dave. And I'll never forget, right before they were sentencing us, I turned around to my attorney. I said, well, listen, I said, when he throws down the gauntlet right there, the hammer, I said, I want to be able to at least give her a kiss goodbye and my son. He goes, yeah, that no problem. And he was an infant at the time. So I mean, when that happened, he was in the back and I'm hearing him cry and he's crying. He was a baby. And so after they completed the sentence and everything, and I was supposed to get hauled to the back, I turned around like I was walking back to give my wife a kiss goodbye and my son. And judge turns around and it's like, what are you doing? I'm like, what I'm saying bye to my family. He goes, let me tell you something. He goes, did you hear that kid in the back crying? He didn't know that was my son. And I said, yeah. He goes, how many babies do you think you made cry with what you were doing? And I was like, wow, damn. Like, you talk about some heavy shit right there, which, hey man, it was bad shit. I mean, I was involved in bad shit. So at any rate, yeah, I never got to say, goodbye in that aspect or anything like that. But yeah, so I went through the system. My son basically grew up seeing me on the weekends, coming in, visiting, and he took his very first steps in Trenton State Prison.
Wow.
And it freaked me out. I'm like, well, this could be a curse or this could be a good thing. I don't know. Now, fast forward, again, my son grew up on the mats, martial artist himself, big kid, 6'6", about 257. Oof. And funny thing about it is we're getting back into talking about weight. I took a lot of gear back in the 80s. You know what I mean? And I was on a heavy cycle. And I remember I was concerned. And I said to the doctor, I said, yeah, like you see side effects with, mom might smoke cigarettes or she's on dope or whatever, and the kids come out fucked up. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm on a lot of juice. I said, do you think maybe it will interfere? And he looked at me and he goes, I guess we'll find out, and kid was a monster. I mean, seriously. I mean, he could have been a pro bodybuilder at 6'6". I mean, from his calves up to his neck, very symmetrical. I mean, he was a monster. And I got involved. I got involved raising him and my other two. After I got out of prison, I was focused, man. I'm like, I got to do the right thing. I don't care if I have to work 3-5 jobs. Got into cabinetry, construction, still did some security work. But again, I was towing that line. You know what I mean? And somebody got into my mind about getting into real estate. And I said, well, being a felon, I don't know if I can get my license, which I did. And it wasn't my niche. You know what I mean? I just didn't like it. And I'll never forget the guy that I'll give him my mortgages, and anytime somebody would come in, it was a hard deal. We called him the Magic Man. And he would get the deal done. And we had large deals around 750,000. And we're going back in the 90s. And he turned around and he throws me an envelope. You know what I mean? A kickback, which you're not allowed to do, but I didn't give it. I'm taking it. You know what I mean? And I'm looking at the money and I'm like, this is more money than I got on my commission. He goes, well, you earned that. And I said, so how do I do what you do? You know what I mean? So got in the mortgage industry, and I was nailing it. I was killing it. And then 07 came around and the economy kind of collapsed. And for about 2 years, I was robbing Peter to pay Paul. And when Paul ran out of money, Peter got pissed. And it was like, what do we do? House is going to get foreclosed on. I mean, and my wife at the time was like, well, why don't we move to Branson? I was like, well, what's your second choice? She's like, well, we have family in Branson. We used to visit all the time, and it was a really good community, family-based community. And so really, I guess we really don't have too many choices here. I mean, my family was all older dead and, passed on. And so I said, you know what? We'll take everything. We'll put it in storage. I figured about a year we'd be back. And so got all our belongings, left the house, took the cars, and, just put enough into a little U-Haul that I drove here to Branson. I drove my vehicle. She drove hers. And, we're out here for about 6 months, 7 months. The economy's not getting better. I'm calling my buddies in the industry. They're like, it's getting worse. And I'm like, you know what? I guess we're going to fly back and get our belongings. And we came back, and that was 14 years ago, bro. So moved out here to Branson. I started a martial arts school, which, I mean, it was unknown. I mean, they didn't know Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and there was a few things going on here, but nothing of my magnitude. You know what I mean? Opened up a school, created a life, and like I said, just a lot of injuries, man. A lot of injuries, 9 knee surgeries, got a total hip replacement, tore a bunch of tendons, ligaments, and through jiu-jitsu, it's a lot of wear and tear, man. Like, and I was active on the mat. I'm rolling with the guys, and I'm going through it. You have to decipher the pecking order.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, just an ego. I'm like, I mean, I don't care. I mean, I'll snap before I tap. And that's what was happening. I'm snapping everything, and, always involved in weight training. Always. I mean, I have a full-size gym out here, and got rid of the majority of my mats. And I would always tell my students, I said, every time I'm on this mat, I got to earn my black belt. You know what I mean? It's something that I take for granted. And I just started to see myself lose the passion in it more and more. I was still delivering great content. They were getting, a lifetime of material. They were loving it. But I'm looking at myself, looking at the watch, like his class almost over. And when that happened, I'm like, I think it's time to bow out, and it's been about a year and a half now. But I've always got into the weight training. Like, weight training was always my anchor. Always, regardless, I'm hitting the weights. And I came up with a program, and it was online based because of it was about when COVID was about to hit. You
Right.
know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I'm like, well, this would be great for people to do at home. I could put them through my jailhouse workouts. You know what I mean? They're not going to be able to go to gyms. And so we came up with a system that worked out great. And about 2 months into it, my financial investor, he got into a little bit of the beef with the IT guy. And he had multiple businesses. And so we pulled the plug. And it wasn't pulling the plug on my system, but I was starting to generate good income, you know. And when he pulled the plug, my son went missing. And like I said, this was when COVID hit. I was getting separated. I had to get a hip replaced. Like I had a lot of things that were hitting me. And I was like, I'll just put that on the back burner for now. And my mentor, now my coach, Wes, was doing the same exact thing. And Wes right now, he's probably making close to $3 million a month. I mean, he's explosive. I mean, the guy, he's up there with Brad Lay. I'm trying to think of a couple of the other guys that he does like mastermind programs with, but he's killing it. And I mean, he's very charismatic. He knows how to speak well. I mean, the guy's earning his money. He really is. And I was just following him, throughout the years and everything like that. And finally, it gained my interest. I was sober for off alcohol. I was really never a heavy drinker until I moved out here. And then being depressed, I started to hit the bottle a little too hard and realized that, but I white knuckle it because of, I'm like, my ego. I can stop. I can do, I can beat this. And I did. Even when my son went missing, he was missing for 2 years before they found his remains. And I still stayed sober throughout that whole process. And what really got me through it was weight training. It really did. Listening to positive stuff like we were talking about. I throw my ear pods in and listen to a speaker, listen to some West stories, and it was inspirational. And it kept me going. And I stayed really secluded. I mean, I think everybody should do that. Like even when I was in prison, you're still around somebody. You got a cellie or something. I mean, there's movement. But I isolated myself in my gym. So if I wasn't holding classes, I was by myself. I was either on my motorcycle or I was walking around this park listening to something positive. And it saved my life. It really did. It wasn't for, like I said, my coach Wes and other influential people out there. When my son went missing, he was an enforcer. He was 15 when we moved out here. Big kid, strong. I mean, prior to his disappearance, he could have got a UFC contract. They were looking at him. He had six amateur fights, which at that time, 6 amateur, and then he had 1 professional win. So their eyes, I mean, marketable. I mean, good looking kid, big kid, the whole 9 yards, but he had an addiction problem. And even though I thought this was Mayberry when I moved out here, I realized real quick that there was a serious meth problem out here as well. And he fell into it with the wrong crowd, the wrong people. They were using him for his muscle. Again, him watching his uncles and me growing up, he was glorifying it. And I was saying, kid, let me tell you something. Follow the path I'm on now. I said, don't follow the path that I was on. I said, because that's going to either wind you up in prison like me, I said, or you're going to die, and then 2 years later, by the grace of God, they found his remains because of, honestly, I was waiting for the right moment to do the wrong thing, and it was coming up quick.
Yeah.
And when they found his remains, they ruled out any foul play. He had his gun with his remains, fully loaded, one in the chamber, his knife, his jewelry, had some money in his pocket still. I mean, it was all kind of crumbled up and everything. He was out there for 2 years. And training law enforcement here, I was able to go out to the site and make sure that it wasn't something that they transported his remains or it was settled in the ground. And a dog came across his remains. Guy was out hunting for antlers. And he was in a remote part of the woods, which again, we had, I mean, it was the Facebook page was the mystery of the missing MMA fighter. And we had 100,000 plus followers. And we had a lot of people coming out here and what is it when they get together and do searches for them, and nothing came up. But then, in that 2 years, I heard every horrific story there is. And I don't know how familiar you are with meth or anything like that, but I mean, it's a twisted drug. And
Sure.
it really messes with people's minds. And it's like whisper down the lane. You hear from one, it goes to the next. The next, I'm like I said, I heard some stories that would just make anybody crumble. And you became numb to it. You really did. And like I said, if it wasn't for the weight training and the things of that nature, I don't know, man. I could have been locked up again. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that was kind of a really quick, condensed series. You know what I mean? I don't know if you want me to elaborate anymore on
Yeah,
anything.
man. I want to kind of pick apart some of that stuff, man. That's
Okay.
you've got a whole book in you, if not two or three books. But I want to kind of
Mhm.
get back to your time in prison, man. What did your daily routine look? Was you still into fitness? Is that where you kind of grew this program out of? What did that look like?
It all depends on the facility that you were at. Okay. Now, when we got sentenced, there was it was overcrowded in Jersey. So basically, we went to about 9 to 10 different, I call them institutions, prior to hitting our final destination, just because it was crowded. So, some places I was in, you were locked down 24 hours. Some you were locked down for 23 hours. They'd give you an hour to go out and take a shower. Some you had minimal, you know what I mean? So there was a lot more movement. So it all depends on what they had. There you didn't have weights, so you would just throw a bunch of books into your laundry bag and do curls, and throw a youngster on your back and do some squats, push-ups, a lot of calisthenics. But that transit lasted, like I said, about 9, 10 months. And when we finally got to our destination, Leesburg, they had weights, and you had movement, you had to keep down the job. You're in general population. Like, I mean, I've seen horrific stuff happen inside. I mean, there were stabbings going on a daily basis, and it was usually dope or gambling. Somebody owed money for this, that, which I mean, I stayed clear of.
Yeah,
I was in there to do my time and get out. So there wasn't really too much concerns on that aspect. It's I tell you, man, it's like being in the free world, just with limitations. I'm somebody who's used to structure. I've always needed structure in my life. So with that, being involved, it wasn't that hard. I mean, people, have this in their mind. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen if you put yourself in the wrong situation, but that's out here in the free world.
sure. Yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's all how you do your time. Are you going to do your time, or are you going to let your time do you?
yeah,
I did my time. You know what I mean? I made sure I stayed in shape, and getting into what you were saying. That's where I was really grouping up a lot of the people, and we would do a lot of our burpees. So we would do 1,000 burpees a day. We had the opportunity of hitting the weight pile on certain days, and with my years of experience, they were able to use it. So basically, I was the shot caller. You know what I mean? I called the shots from my group, and I had to make sure that they were leaning me. Like if anything was about to pop off, man, they were ready to rock and roll. Addictions, man, I didn't want to hear about it. You need medicine for anxiety or depression, man. You got to go. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't work in prison. I need you ready. So if something's about to kick off, you're ready to rock and roll. You know what I mean? And that you would have riots, things that would pop off, man. And then, the majority of the cats that I got a hold of and I was able to touch, they stayed fit. I still stay in contact with some of them today. A lot of them are dead. A lot of them are just still spun out of their skull. Even at the age of, all dependent. I mean, obviously there's no age limit or things of that nature. But yeah, like I said, the discipline of prison itself wasn't something that I wasn't accustomed to. So, like I said, I did my time. I didn't let my time do me.
yeah. That's the way to do it, man. So, you talk about you started your journey of martial arts at 4 years old, and you're 55 now, and you're still at it. What keeps you going in that? What keeps you involved in it?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Like I said, I've taken off after I had my hip replacement about 2 years ago. I was still teaching. You know what I mean? But I couldn't actively roll. And that was just tearing at my soul. You know what I mean? I wanted to get out there and still mix it up. I was still able to go over techniques. But like I said, I basically bowed out, man. I stopped all of it. I had one of my students run the program for a while, and like anybody else, they feel as though that they can do it themselves and make all the money. Where they don't realize, especially in this area, the commitment level is weak. It's a tourist town. There's a lot of timeshare bandits out here that sell timeshare. A lot of entertainers. People don't want to get hurt. Their first vision in their mind is they're walking into a facility where they're going to get beat up. You know what I mean? So they stay clear. And my whole process was safety first. You know what I mean? I always make sure my students were taken care of. I'm not going to throw them into the lion's den or the shark tank. Now, they come in with an ego or do something disrespectful, yeah, you're going to get it quick. You know what I mean? But really, like I said, martial art wise itself, man, I haven't put a gi on, and I would say at least 7-8 months. Really haven't. Like, I'll do some guest seminars here and there. I used to make a lot of money doing that because people would pay me to do seminars. Now with YouTube, I mean, it's at their fingertips. They can put whoever they want in, their favorite martial artist, click their name and technique, and it's popping up, and it's free. So that kind of hurt me in terms of additional income. So like I said, disgruntled, no, but I just went back to what makes me happy. Yeah. And that's making people healthier, making them better. It's anymore. I'm selfless. I'm not selfish. It's not about me anymore. It's about my clients. It's about transforming them into a better person, and starting with their mind first. If your mind's not right, nothing's going to be right. And I get people that have all kinds of issues. If it's not an addiction issue, I mean, I got people that have masturbation issues, man. And I'm like, go buy your wife some roses if you think you want to go do that, or buy her a car. Like how many times a day do you do that? Like, it's mind blowing. But hey, man, whatever. As long as you're not out there harming kids or putting your hands on women, I don't really care. So again, I got to get their mind right first and foremost. And then I put them on a macro-based diet where basically we're just getting their fats, their carbs, and their proteins correct within a caloric deficit or surplus or whatever they're looking to do, gain weight or lose weight. And after that, then again, it's just about the training. I mean, I do hypertrophy training, strength and conditioning, whatever they're looking to do, I know. I mean, I might not look like that 25-year-old stud out there, but I've been doing it for 37 years. So I got the knowledge, I got the certificates, the degrees. So when it comes down to fitness, there's nobody here in Branson that can touch me. I mean, I'm pretty knowledgeable, and obviously looking at you, you definitely know what you're doing. It works. And it's not rocket science, but it is science.
Yeah.
And I basically dedicated a majority of my life to it. So when people come in here, man, I'm putting them on the right path. And like I said, it's a self-mastery system. Here, they have that option of coming in and training with me. Now I have an online business as well, where I put them on my Trainer Eyes app, all depending on what they have to work with. That's what I'll gear their exercises to. And then it comes down to non-negotiable tasks each week, early wake-up times, you know what I mean? Self-reflections, journaling. Like I said, I have a certain amount of tasks that I need them to complete throughout the week. And then again, we do our weekly reflections, and then we rinse and repeat. So again, I have guys that have been with me over a year, great transformations. A lot of people fizzle out. A lot of people, they want to be about it, but they don't want to put in the time.
Yeah, that's where you come in, man. That accountability is so important. I'm sure that's exactly what you do for most of these people. I mean, they can get, like you said, the internet, you can get whatever you want out there, but who's going to hold your feet to the fire? And that's where you come in. So how do you use kind of your past experiences to do what you're doing now? How has that kind of rolled into what you do now?
Like I said, just a lifetime of it. You know what I mean? Just being a very disciplined person. A lot of people, they don't have it. They need it. You know what I mean? That's why I start off, like I told you, I get up at 2:30 a.m. every single day. I mean, Monday through Sunday. There's not a day that I am not waking up at 2:30. And, with the grace of God, even if I'm making late phone calls till 11 p.m., 12 midnight, I'm still up at 2:30. You know what I mean? Just cranking on that coffee pot, man, getting caffeinated, getting ready for my group to come in. What I have here is an invite-only private gym. So again, for some reason, if you don't fit, man, you're out. One bad apple can spoil the bunch, and we keep each other accountable, and that's the good thing about it. It's a group community where we can sense each other. If this one's falling out, man, hey, now it's as a family, we got to uplift this individual and find out what's going on. You know what I mean? So again, it's like two heads are better than one. 12 is even better. So again, we're here to uplift each other, and that's the same thing with my online. I have weekly Zoom calls that we sit there, we have Q&As, and then I have some for the coaches as well. I leave that up to West mostly. Like if they want to get involved on what I'm doing, I leave that up to him. My whole thing is training clients. Yeah. Bottom line is that's my deal. That's my bread and butter. And again, that's what I love to do. And it's the passion. If you don't have the passion for it, man, you need to get out of it. You really do. And that's kind of the reason why I got out of martial arts. I started to lose the passion of it. I mean, you're looking at 51 years of it. Not to say in 6 more months, I'll get the fever for it again. It's happened. You know what I mean? Like I stayed 51 years, not 51 years straight. I mean, there was times growing a family, business-wise, that I took a significant time off. You know what I mean? And got back into it. But I always stuck with the weight training, regardless. I had to, because it's for this right here. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not really too concerned about the appearance, you know what I mean? The physical appearance. It's the mental approach. It keeps me balanced. And then, I wake up inherently negative. And I think God does that so we can get shit done throughout the day. Because if we woke up comfortable, I mean, you just sit back comfortable all day. You know what I mean? Like, it gets me in the gear. It gets me going. And I get my morning, typically I hit my first workout about 4 a.m. Now, about this time, like, you get me pumped up. I love doing this. So I'm already feeling the good vibes. But yeah, probably after our podcast, I'll go out, I'll do some push-ups and dips, maybe, some burpees, something again to reset myself. So again, like I tell people, they're like, well, aren't you overtraining? I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'm not doing it for the aesthetics. I'm doing it for the mental aspect. That's keeping me away from drugs. This is keeping me away from alcohol. This is keeping me away from whatever could destruct you in life. And really, man, the cure is in that. It really is. I mean, it's a way of life for you. Like without it, where would you be? You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah. When I don't work out for about a week or two, man, I'm not the same person for sure.
You're not.
And to get up at 2:30, try doing that without passion. If you ain't got that, you ain't getting up every morning at 2:30, 7 days a week, 365. That's for sure.
I love it. And that's the thing. I love doing what I'm doing. Even when I get negative, sometimes I'll call one of my clients up and like, hey, man, do you want a free personal? You know what I mean? They're like, what are you talking about? Like, and I charge. Here, it's like I said, it's unless you're in the timeshare or entertainment, man, it's a pretty broke town. You know what I mean? So anyhow, when they hear that, they jump on it. So I'll bring, like, I just had one of my guys, Tony. I called him in, man. He wanted to do shoulders. So, we did HIIT training, high intensity training, the old Arthur Jones. I don't know if you ever followed any of his stuff.
Sure.
And Mike Mensert and Dorian Yates took it over. He's a young kid. He's 23. He's a stud. You know what I mean? I wish I still kind of veer back to it a little bit, but then my body tells me I'll feel a tweak, and I'm like, yeah, that high intensity training is probably not for me anymore. But I still push it to the red tape, man. I do. I missed it. I used to love squatting heavy. You know what I mean? And deadlifting, and when I just started to tear all my tendons and ligaments. Doctor told me that, man. He said straight out, he goes, listen, he goes, with the supplements that you were on, he goes, it was giving you the muscle mass to push that weight, but your natural body wasn't meant to handle over 500-pound squats, deadlifts, bench press. Like, your joints and your tendons are screaming. Like, what are you doing to you? You know what I mean? And honestly, I'm at that age where there's no such thing as a free lunch. Those times of being jacked, looking great, and just feeling invincible. Now the S is off the chest, man. I'm back to being Clark Kent. But again, I'm passing it on to people. You know what I
That's it.
mean? I physically I might be 50%. Mentally, I'm at 150%. So that's the good part of it. You know what I mean? And again, I'm all about being selfless, not selfish. You
That's it,
know,
man. Yeah.
my mentor has a saying, and I'll state it for him as well. Create that person that you would want to be. Create that person you want to be, and then give that person away. Pass it down, pass it down. Change lives. And I'm sure you've changed a lot of lives, maybe not even knowing it. But we're on this earth all for a reason, and we're all connected. And if we're not better than each other, what are we here for?
That's it, man. That's the daily mission. I'm glad you're on it every morning too. Every morning, 2:30, you're on that mission. So if someone's listening right now, how could they reach out and work out with you?
Real easy. If you want to go on to my YouTube, it's Strength Certified. So Strength Certified with an S. So they can YouTube me. If they want to go on Facebook, it's Rick RICK Koenig KOENIG. That's my Instagram as well. So again, they can hit me up on Facebook, Instagram. I'm on TikTok. My YouTube station is Strength Certified with an S. And then I have a website that's strength-certified with an S.com. So I have a nice landing page. I made it simple, keep it simple, stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, just they can click on it. I have a few programs, basically they have to click the link. They get they're not obligated for the phone call. If it's not for them, it's not for them. And we just chop it up, man. See what's the real reason? I mean, why are you calling me? I mean, you're calling me for a reason. Is it for self-help? Is it for weight training? What do you need? And we'll find a solution. So like I said, they can connect to me on social media. They can look at my content that I have on YouTube. And again, I got a lifetime of material. So, I mean, anything that they might need, I have for them.
That's it, man. I'll link all that show notes because you may be like me and you don't spell very well. So I'll put that. You can just click on it. You have to worry about memorizing all that. Rick, man, this has been awesome. I'm so glad we got that link up and do this and keep doing what you're doing, man. We need people like you out in the world.
I appreciate you, Joe. You're an awesome guy yourself, brother. Thank you.
Hey, I appreciate you. Hey, if you're listening right now, please share this episode. Rick's doing some stuff to change the world out there. More people need to hear about this guy. They need to go out to Branson, check him out online, whatever it is. But please share this episode. Keep spreading the positivity. Rick's going to keep spreading the positivity. I'm going to do the same. And we'll see you guys next week.
All right.
Wow, what a great episode. You just share that with somebody. I'm going to share with you some awesome sponsors. McWilliams Marketing. They can help your business grow. Regardless of the size of the project, you're going to get a solution that is specifically created for you and your business. No cookie cutter, one size fits approach here. So Amy and her band of fearless marketers can help you with all that stuff that you think you can do, but you're not really that good at it. You don't have time for it. They can do that. They're the experts. It's what they do. Web design, online conversion optimization, SEO, graphic design, marketing, page management, all that stuff. Go let them do that. Don't handle that yourself. Go check them out at McWilliamsMarketing.com. See what all they can do. They're amazing people. Teak Patnick with Patnick Realty. He really does it all in the real estate world. General real estate sales, acquisitions, property management, investments, all that good stuff. You're not just a transaction with Teak. He really wants to build a relationship for life with you. He has built his whole business on prayer, hard work ethic, honesty, and results. You can trust Patnick Realty with all your real estate needs. Hey, I trust my brother from another mother, Teak, and you should too. Give him a call, 256-694-0117, or email him at teak@patnickco.com.
Over the past 4 years, Valley Leadership Academy has established a reputation for being the ideal alternative to traditional schools by providing an excellent education along with real-life leadership and service opportunities. Now is your chance to come alongside them and help them grow to the next level. Please visit valleyleadershipacademy.org to find out about personal and corporate sponsorships that will help this remarkable school grow in an even brighter spot in Huntsville. Together, we can make a difference.
Hey, these are awesome businesses. Go support them. They're out supporting positivity, and they will do you right. Have an awesome day.